Okay, you may begin.
Good, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Robert Foster, and I'm the chair of the Board of Directors of TO Live. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I'd like to call meeting 18 of the Board of Directors of TO Live to order. This meeting is being held using the city's WebEx technology, with members and staff calling in or connecting by video conference or attending in person at Toronto City Hall. Because we ask for your patience with any delays and technical issues. Members of the public can observe the meeting on YouTube. A few reminders, members and staff, please keep your microphones on mute unless you need to answer a question or speak. Members, if you wish to speak, have your video on and raise your hand, or unmute your mic and let me know, and I will create a speakers list. Also ensure that your video is turned on when voting. Staff, please keep video turned off unless you need to speak or answer questions. At this point, I'd now like to ask Jennifer Ridge to provide the land acknowledgement. Jennifer.
Thank you. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the board would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the unceded traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and currently the Mississaugas of the New Credit. We acknowledge these nations and all other Indigenous nations, including the Métis, who have called the land on which Toronto is built home. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live, learn, and create on this land together.
Thank you, Josephine. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic. Thank you. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes of the TO Live board meeting on September 3, September 25, October 21, and October 28. Someone please so move. Thank you, Steve. May I have a seconder? Thank you, Gabe. Discussion? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Approved. Thank you. We have 11 items on the agenda. We will consider the items that do not require closed session consideration first and hold the items that require a closed session to the end of the meeting. Our first item is CT 18-1, President and Chief Executive Officer, General Status Update. I will ask President CEO Clyde to give an update and his report.
Thank you very much to the chair and to the committee members or the board members for your time today. As always, we really appreciate it. I'll just assume that you've read the materials presented before you, so I won't recover the statements that are in the data report because this is the quarterly report that you've received for Q3. Just to say that Q3 was a time, again, reiterating that it was an in-between time for funding for us. So and also it was the end of the first wave, beginning of the second wave, if we might put it that way, of our friend COVID-19. So our focus at that point was really looking into the future. It gave us an opportunity to plan out the program for recovery, which I look forward to talking a little bit more about potentially later in the meeting, Steve. And also, just as a reminder and as an overview for that, our focus right now is really on emerging artists and innovation. Our focus is really on the people who most need our help. So the programming department, which we'll touch on a little bit later in the in-camera session for the current period, but for Q3, we were really looking at assisting those who did not have great infrastructure around them, and really making sure, like, for example, the Living Room program, that we were really reaching out to those artists. The great thing about that is that's also where the greatest innovation happens in our business, just like any other business. And so this conversation that we've begun, it's one that we're going to carry forward, and it's directly relying to our long-term plan for the company as well. And we can talk about that more later. I also want to remind you of the work that the operations department has been doing. We've been very engaged in the Lights On program, which is the manual that's being developed with Ryerson University, Toronto, and several other major players in TAPA, on how to safely restart the industry from an operations perspective. I believe that should be released soon, and we're looking forward to that. As well, there's been a lot of work in our fundraising and marketing departments, planning for the future, especially around the digital transformation, which now more than ever, as we all can agree, is really critical to our business. And I just got a note, I'm sure, from Matt telling me that the Lights On guide was yesterday. So should you want to really dig into an operations manual, I will forward you the link later. I'm sure it will be exciting. At that, I'll turn it back over to the chair and we'll pick it up in the camera session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clyde. Do any of our board members have any questions of the CEO? Okay, we'll then move on. May I have a motion to adopt the receipt of the CEO's report, please? Thank you, Kathleen. Seconder, Jillian, thank you. Discussion, all those in favor, contrary, approved. CT 18-2, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Staff Committee Framework. This is a letter from the Human Resources, Compensation, and Labor Relations Committee, along with the staff report. Steve Levitan, as a member of the committee, has agreed kindly to give us an update and a report on this. Steve? Yep, you're on mute, Steve.
I don't actually have a report to give on this. I thought I was reporting on the St. Lawrence Center committee for Kevin.
All right.
Refresh my memory.
No, Clyde, would you be kind enough? You're on mute. No, you're off. Good.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to jump in there. This was the very first time that the DEI committee presented to the HR committee of the board. We were very happy to begin this work, and thank you to the chair of the DEI committee, Priya Malik, who is our director of capital projects, for leading that initiative, and for all the people who have volunteered their time into that particular staff level committee. We had an update on the platform that you saw before you. I won't review the slide deck, but it was well received with some very, very constructive and useful feedback from, I believe, Steve Levitan and Councillor Fletcher. Thank you. That they've requested a detailed plan for engagement for HR and hiring, particularly for underserviced communities. We are very happy to add that into the DEI committee work, and we've already begun that work, and we're looking forward to giving that feedback to the next HR committee, which we believe is happening in the first quarter of next year. So thank you.
Good. Okay. Are there any questions that board members have? Yes, Kathleen.
I'm not so sure whether this is really a question. It's kind of a quasi question, but it looks like amazing work, and congratulations for undertaking it. And I'm wondering whether this is an obvious example to use when the board gets into its work later on down the road, whether this kind of approach is something that would make sense. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. And if this feels like it's working really well for management and staff, it seems to me that something like this would work well for us as well.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Clyde, you might be kind enough to look at rephrasing it if in the context of the board based on Kathleen's suggestion. I think it's a good idea. I'd
be very happy to do that. And should it go, I'm assuming it should go back up to the HR committee to work.
Yeah, go to the HR committee. They can review it, and then we can distribute it as a draft to the board.
Great. I forgot to mention the great work that our HR director, Christine Kelsey, has also been doing on that. And I don't want to leave her out because both Priya and Christine have really been leading the charge. We'll look at that and get it back to you soon for the next meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just also wanted to qualify that. Obviously, we're waiting for the new members of the board to be appointed and all those other things that we're doing prior to getting involved in the actual work. But it just seems like this might be an interesting model for us to use.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a strong model, and we can always amend it as we proceed. But putting a base in place is, I think, a great suggestion. Good. Hey, any other comments? No? All right. May I have a motion to adopt the committee's recommendations to receive the report for information, please? Thank you, Kathleen. Second, and Steve. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Contrary? Approved. Thank you. Next three items, CT 18.3, 18.4, 18.5 are letters from the Human Resources Comp and Labor Relations Committee with staff report and confidential attachments. The board will need to discuss these in closed session, so I will hold them down until the end of the meeting. Our next item is CT 18.6, Voluntary Separation Program, TO Live. This is a letter from the Human Resources Compensation Labor Relations Committee, along with a staff report. Clyde, are you providing the overview on that?
I can, and I'll call on our VP of Finance, Bill Milne, to also join me in this. I'll give a very quick overview. It's a city-run program inspired by COVID-19, and it's a early retirement offer that can go out to certain employees if they qualify. And then on that, I'll hand it over to the expert, to Bill Milne.
Bill? Where's Bill? Oh, there he is. You're on mute, Bill. Huh? Can't hear you. Oh, my volume's up.
No, we still can't hear you, Bill. Sorry.
No. Can you just speak into the machine, into your computer?
Oh, no.
Okay, Clyde, you're on.
Okay, well, on that note, Bill can text me. No. You know, this is something that I did to Bill earlier because we had it. No, I didn't do this. This is just a joke. Well, that's what it is. It's a program that the City of Toronto has offered to employees that qualify. So they have to reach a certain number of years with a certain number of points behind them. Point system is delegated, especially under the OMER system. It's all very regulated. The money has been forwarded to us in the operations request to the city, and we're going through the offer of this program to select employees who qualify. We've sent out the original letter to make the request.
Okay. All right. Any questions on this? Yes, Steve.
So I take the city is going to fund whatever this additional obligation is. Do we have any idea how many employees that are either on staff now or on furlough might qualify for this if they choose it?
I see 9. Anyone else for 9? Do I hear 10? 9? Very good. Thank you. And yes, this was in the budget as passed in September by the board.
Okay. All right. Other
Thanks,
questions? Bill. All right. May I have a motion to adopt the committee's recommendation that we accept the report? Someone, thank you, Jillian. Seconded, Gabe. Discussion, all those in favor, contrary, approved. Our next item is CT 18.7, 2020 third quarter financial results and commentary. There is a staff report with confidential attachments along with a letter from the audit committee and the board. We'll need to discuss this item in closed session. If there are no public questions or comments, we will hold the item for a closed session. And hopefully by then, Bill will have solved his audio issue. Our next item is CT 18.8, St. Lawrence Center redevelopment, launch of public consultation. There is a staff report along with a letter from the St. Lawrence Center redevelopment committee. Steve is going to comment for us on this?
So I am prepared to give a report for this. We had a meeting earlier this week. We welcomed the new members who are outside of this board, who are members of that committee. Those include Gabe Lindo, Renee Gomez, and Nagin Zabarajad. I think they're terrific additions to the board. They each have incredibly good backgrounds for the different areas that committee is going to need to encompass, ranging from real estate development to community outreach to social media. So I think they're really great additions, and I'm happy to have them on. And the only other item of importance that came up is that the community outreach program itself is now scheduled to begin sometime in January. We were earlier trying to find a way to do that for late this year, but it seems that's been pushed to January to coordinate with City Hall activities as well. So that's basically the report. The rest of it you've got in your material.
Good. All right. Any questions of Steve?
To the chair, if I could just make one comment.
Sure.
That we have another meeting of the committee in January, but that the start of the public consultation is more towards probably the end of the first quarter, depending on how it goes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks for that correction, Paul.
No problem. I just wanted to make sure.
All right. Any other questions? No? Steve, would you be kind enough to make motion to adopt the committee's recommendation to receive the report? Thank you. Seconder. Thank you, Gary. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Contrary, approved. Next item is CT 18-9, notice of proposal to amend the procedures bylaw for the Board of Directors of TO Live. This is a letter giving notice that the board will consider some amendments to the procedures bylaw at its next regular meeting. The amendments are technical in nature and will simply update our existing bylaws. You've all had a chance to read them and see one of them is just a name change and so on. So any questions or comments on that? If not, I will move that the item be received for information. Seconder, please. Thanks, Jillian. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Contrary minded, approved. Next item, CT 1810, vacancy on TO Live Digital Transformation Committee. Time. This is a letter for information advising of a vacancy on the committee. Any questions or comments? Gabe, do you want to make a quick comment on that, please?
Sure. So this is one of our members from the outside, Hamza Tirani, who is the Chief Digital Officer for Maple Leaf Sports. It's, of course, a huge loss to us to not have his attendance. He just had a baby, and he's on a million other things. So it was something that he needed to drop off. But we thank him so much for his time, and he did a great job. I think as we move forward, I heard that we might have picked a vendor already, and the RFP process is coming to a close. We need to think about, if we have the right set of people for this committee still. I'm thinking of... Oh, Bill's back. Maybe in the digital budget, we'll get Bill like a microphone or something that works. So we need to rethink a little bit about, are the skill sets that we have on the committee what we'll need for the future? If somebody could mute Bill. Thanks. The other thing is, now that the vendor's selected and it'll go to the board for approval, I've been thinking about, do we need this committee at all, right? We've already kind of had the scope. So anyway, I'll be having those conversations with our chair and Clyde and anybody else that wants to partake, because we are at a little bit of a inflection point on what to do with the committee, I think. So anyway, that's it.
Good. Well, Gabe, let me say thank you so much to you for leading the way in doing this. And it's a model that we've obviously picked up on for the St. Lawrence Center, and something that I think is excellent because it allows us to bring in outstanding members of the community to assist us with specific issues where they have special knowledge. It also has demonstrated an ability to ensure we have an opportunity for diversity and inclusion in those committees. So it's been a win-win in every way, and I thank you very much for showing the leadership that you did. Gabe, if you would, let's see, do I need a motion? Yes, motion to receive for information only. Thank you, Gabe. Seconded, Steve. Steve, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did. First of all, I really want to thank Gabe for his work on pulling together the incredible talent that we had on that committee and for spearheading it all, because I think it's really hugely important work and it was extremely well put together. The second thing is, I wonder whether as a board we shouldn't officially do something to thank Hubsa for his work, because he was terrific. Very open, very generous with his advice and everything. Maybe even just a letter from the board that thanks him for his participation. So that's my brother calling. I'm not speaking to him. The third thing is I would not abandon the committee. We might suspend it, but I think there's a future role that's important for the committee that deals with not just the technical operations of the digital work that TO Live does, but expanding it into new forms of digital performance, etc., where the committee might be useful. So, I'd keep it. I don't know that it needs to meet quite as frequently, but I think there's more roles. I'll have comments later that might tie into that.
Okay. All right. Further discussion?
Robert? It's Paul.
Yeah. Hi, Paul. Yeah, please.
Hi. Well, I'm a little confused because this committee just doesn't meet almost period. So I don't think we've met once in 2020, and we haven't accomplished much at the end of the day. So I'm still confused as to what it's. I'm on the committee and I really don't understand the mandate. So I think we have to work on this.
Gabe?
So we have met multiple times. You've been there. A lot of it was.
March. I haven't met since the pandemic.
We definitely have met. There's been lots of meetings. Look, I think the reason why we set this up at the beginning was to make sure we have a defined scope for what this means. Oftentimes, these projects can start biting off way more than they can chew, and budgets start spiraling, and all of a sudden you're into a 3-4 year, 10-year software development program that, we can't stop because we've spent too much money, and, we can't. It becomes a money pit, right? I think the biggest success in this is we have a great scope of work. We know exactly what the vendor is going to do. We know how much it's going to cost. We know what the outcomes are going to be. And it's something that we were able to very clearly define on the metrics, on the budget. A lot of good stuff came out of this. We have staffing plans for what will be required. We have budgets. We know what the outcome will be. I think that my comment about the future of the committee is more around, do we need a whole committee to govern a project? Because essentially, once we pick a vendor, this will become a project like any other. And maybe we decide we do. But like, for example, we spend a lot of money on capital projects. There's not a capital project committee, right? There's a finance committee. So I'm not sure if everything needs committee, but I think those are things that we do need to talk about. And Paul, I think your comment about scope is extremely valid, which is why I bring it up. Like, I think we, as we pick a vendor and we move forward, what's the purpose of the committee? Do we need to do this? Do we need to take everybody's time? So anyway, just wanted to be cognizant, but I think we have accomplished some good stuff. We really got the scope nailed down, and hopefully we've got the bones for a great project to come once we pick this vendor.
Clyde?
Thank you very much to the chair and to the chair of both audit and to the digital transformation committee. I want to, just from the staff perspective, I want to say that this committee was incredibly helpful to us. And that, in fact, particularly, not that I don't love the board members as well, but particularly the outside members really gave expertise in an area and guided the staff exactly when we needed it, exactly how we needed it. We met last in September, and had a very fruitful meeting. And it is actually because of the guidance of the DTC that we were able to ensure that we got to this stage to being able to award the RFP with a clear, defined vision and scope. And I'm really quite pleased with that. So I do want to stress how important that committee was to us because of the way it worked, because of the specific and very good information that they provided. And we were had to have robust conversations around really targeted questions. Were very, very good. So thank you, Gabe, and thanks to the people that sat on the committee, both board members and the applicant.
Gabe? Yep.
And just for a little bit of clarification too for the other board members, there was a lot of work that was done, that we didn't necessarily see. So, for example, Hamza, who's the member that had to resign, opened up Maple Leaf Sports to our team. So, Clyde and his team went there for an entire afternoon and spent time with all of their digital leaders and looked at their roadmap and looked at all the things that they were doing. And all of the committee members were available, right? So if someone on Clyde's team wanted to have a very quick call with one of the members to get some advice on something before it came up, we did that. So there was actually quite a bit of work happening this whole time, and everything was brought to the committee for guidance. So a lot of stuff I think that was on an individual basis that we didn't necessarily all see.
Good. A couple things. Steve, it might be a good idea if we had a motion from you recommending that the chair and Gabe send a letter of appreciation to the committee. I might also comment that if you sit on a committee, you want to be active and doing something. And if the committee has fulfilled its function, I think it's better to thank them. And then if a year from now, for some reason, you want them back, you go reconstitute. But just to leave it out there, I'm not sure it's a good idea because people see their name on something and they're not doing anything. And people, if they're there, if their name's there, they want to be useful and they want to be active. They don't want to be just a token on the list, I think. That would be my inclination. Now, Gabe and Clyde, would you be using the committee over the next while or not?
I think, what I can do as a next step is I'll come with a recommendation to the board to our next meeting. Our next board meeting is in the new year, and by then we'll have had another digital meeting, I believe, where we will have to approve. There's still at least one more meeting we need to do to approve the vendor before it comes to the board for final approvals. And that gives us time to figure out what the future will hold, I think. So I'll come prepared with a recommendation to the next board meeting.
Excellent. Thank you.
So, Robert, I'd like to follow your suggestion and make a motion that the board unanimously thank not only Hamza, but since the committee is pretty much suspending operations, all the other outside members who have so generously given their time and advice.
Right. Good. Okay. So we have a motion, seconder. Thank you, Gabe. Discussion. All those in favor, contrary, approved. Thank you very much. Gabe, you and I'll work on that. Thank you. Next item, CT 1811 Chair's update on COVID-19 and TO Live. We'll hold this for discussion in closed session. Hang on. Here's page 6. Go. I would ask the clerk to display a motion to go into closed session, which I will read out loud as well. That the Board of Directors of TO Live recess its public session to meet in closed session to consider the following items: CT 18.3, bargaining mandate for negotiations with the IATSE Local 58, the Meridian Arts Center; CT 18.4, bargaining mandate for negotiations with IATSE Local 58 at the St. Lawrence Center for the Arts; CT 18.5, bargaining mandate for negotiations with IATSE Local 822 at the St. Lawrence Centre for the Arts as they pertain to labor relations or employee negotiations. CT 18.7 2020 third quarter financial results and commentary as it pertains to financial information supplied in confidence to the Board of Directors of TO Live, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organizations. CT 18.11, Chair's update on COVID-19 and TO Live as it pertains to security of the property of the board and relates to personal information about identifiable individuals. So moved. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Jillian. Discussion. All those in favor? Contrary? Approved. So I will now ask the clerk to close the meeting to members of the public and to only provide access to members and appropriate staff for the closed session portion of the meeting. In addition, the live stream will be suspended until the closed session is over. Members and staff, I would also remind you to arrange your surroundings so that no other person observes any part of the closed session debate.
We're good? Okay, we're
Good.
ready to go.
Okay, throw up the motion. Ladies and gentlemen, a motion before you, as has been previously presented and with the amendment as underlined and as amended in closed session. Call for the vote. Any discussion? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Approved. Thank you. Second motion for 18.4. The motion as previously presented to you with the amendment underlined and as amended in closed session. Call for the vote. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Approved. Move to CT 18.5. The motion as presented to you with the amendment as underlined, stating, and as amended in closed session. Call for the vote. Any discussion? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Approved. We then move to, is there a vote on 18? Where am I?
It's 18.7, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. 18.7, direct the confidential attachment 1 and confidential attachment 2 remain confidential in its entirety because if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position, interfere significantly with the contract or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. Call for the vote. Any discussion? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Approved.
You should also do a quick vote to adopt the item as amended, because that just amended Rec 2. Thank you.
And a motion to adopt as amended. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Approved.
And then I believe the only item remaining is item 11, Mr. Chair.
Right. CT 1811. And that is motion. Are you posting a motion or I just stated?
This one, unless there's any other motion intended, can be received for information.
Good. So the motion to receive CT 1811 for information only. Discussion. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Approved. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes our business for today. Meeting adjourned.
Good job, everybody.
Thank you.